Good evening and Merry Christmas Eve, football fans. Big Al here on this Tuesday, December 24th, 2024, and welcome to the Week 16 edition of the week that was, as we'll be taking a look at all the team and player statistical numbers from Week 16 in the National Football League. Also coming up after the recap, we'll have my Week 17 power rankings, the updated playoff picture, and we'll take a look at the latest clinching and elimination scenarios from across the league entering Week 17. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and get notified every time I go live. And give me just a second, I got some info I gotta get, so bear with me for a second. Alrighty, I am back, and I can tell you what we will be discussing in this video as far as the recap is concerned. We'll be looking at the primetime games from week number 16, including the Denver Broncos at the Los Angeles Chargers on Thursday night, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday night, and the New Orleans Saints at the Green Bay Packers on Monday night. Plus the Saturday doubleheader with the Houston Texans at the Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens. And the remaining 12 games on the Sunday schedule. Or should I say 11, since I've already said Sunday Night Football. But either way. That's coming up in the recap. Then again, we'll go through my Week 17 power rankings. And then the updated playoff picture. And the latest clinching and elimination scenarios from across the NFL going into Week 17. So before we get started, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and get notified every time I go live, and let's get into it. The Week 16 edition of the week that was kicks off with Thursday Night Football as the Los Angeles Chargers overcame a double-digit halftime lead and defeat the Denver Broncos 34-27, which would prevent Sean Payton's team from clinching their first playoff berth in 9 years, at least for one more week. Both teams are now 9-6 on the season, and LA owns the head-to-head tiebreaker over Denver because they swept the Broncos in both games this year. We'll begin with individual numbers for the LA Chargers. Justin Herbert finished 23 of 31 for 284 yards with 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 110.2 QB rating, plus 8 carries for 28 yards. Gus Edwards was the leading rusher for LA. He had 14 carries, 68 yards, and 2 scores. Sorry. And Kamani Vidal had 5 carries for 24 yards. Leading receivers for the Chargers include Ladd McConkey, 6 catches, 87 yards on 6 targets. Joshua Palmer, 3 catches, 41 yards on 6 targets. Hassan Haskins, 2 catches, 39 yards, and a touchdown. Oops. Let's try that again. That's the Broncos. Off to a rough start here. There we go. Hassan Haskins had 2 catches, 39 yards, and a touchdown on 2 targets. Stone Smart, 3 catches, 37 yards on 3 targets. Darius Davis with 2 catches, 31 yards, and a touchdown on 2 targets. And Quentin Johnston, 3 for 18 on 6 targets. Cameron Dicker, 2 for 2 on field goals, long attempt 57, 2 for 2 on extra points. J.K. Scott, 3 punts, averaging 41.7, long punt of 46. Leading tacklers for the Chargers include Dayon Henley with 10 tackles. Christian Fulton with 6 solo tackles. Then you have Tony Jefferson with 7 total tackles. Derwin James with 5 total tackles. Tierre Tart with 4 total tackles. Tarheeb Still, 3 solo tackles and a pass defense. Joey Bosa, 3 tackles and a sack. And Puna Ford, he finishes with 2 solo tackles and a pass defense for the Chargers. For the Denver Broncos, Bo Nix finished 29 of 40 for 263 with 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 106.6 QB rating. Audric Estime led the Broncos' ground attack with 9 carries, 48 yards, and a touchdown. Bo Nix added 3 for 25 yards. Javonte Williams, 4 carries for 24 yards. And Blake Watson with 4 carries for 10 yards. Leading receivers for the Chargers include Marvin Mims Jr., 3 catches, 62 yards on 5 targets. Cortland Sutton, 5 catches, 50 yards on 6 targets. Javonte Williams, 7 receptions, 29 yards on 11 targets. Meanwhile, Devon Bailey had a touchdown reception, and Michael Burton also had a touchdown reception for the Broncos. Will Lutz was 2 for 2 on field goals, long was 55, and 3 for 3 on extra points. Riley Dixon, 5 punts, averaging 45.6, long punt of 51, with 2 inside the 20. Leading tacklers for Denver include Brandon Jones with 10 total tackles and a pass defense. Cody Barton, 7 tackles. Zach Allen, 4 tackles. Pat Surtain II also with 4 tackles. Justin Sternad with, you guessed it, 4 tackles. Chris Abrams-Drain had 4 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Meanwhile, Drew Sanders had a sack in this game along with 2 tackles. Total yards were 380 for the Chargers and 355 for the Broncos. Passing yards were 263 for the Chargers and 245 for the Broncos. And rush yards slightly favored LA at 117 to 110. First downs also a slight advantage to the Chargers, 23 to 22. Denver finished 5 of 13 on 3rd down, while LA was 6 of 12. And on 4th down, the Broncos a perfect 2 for 2, while the Chargers were 0 for 1. 7 penalties, 61 yards for the Broncos, 2 sacks taken for 18. No lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 5 punts. 2 penalties and 8 yards for the Chargers, 2 sacks taken for 21. No lost fumbles, 1 interception, and 3 punts. Time of possession favored the Denver Broncos, 32 minutes 23 seconds versus 27 minutes and 37 seconds for the Chargers. Closing line was LA minus 2.5, and the over-under was 41.5. I took the Broncos to win and cover as the visiting underdog. I lost both those picks. I start the week 0-1, and I think I've now lost, 3 straight Thursday night games? That's not good. Moving on to Saturday, we'll start with the first game, our game of the week, as the Kansas City Chiefs continue to find ways to win. The 2-time defending champions held off the Houston Texans 27-19 to improve to an NFL best 14-1 on the season, while the AFC South champion Texans fall to 9-6. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Chiefs, starting with Patrick Mahomes. 28 of 41, 260 yards, a touchdown pass, no interceptions, and a 93.5 QB rating, plus 5 carries, 33 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Kareem Hunt had 11 carries, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Isaiah Pacheco, 9 carries, 26 yards, and Xavier Worthy, 3 carries, 10 yards, and he also led the team in receiving, with 7 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown on 11 targets. Samaje Perine, 3 receptions, 50 yards on 3 targets. Hollywood Brown, 5 for 45 yards on 8 targets. DeAndre Hopkins, 4 catches, 37 yards on 4 targets. Travis Kelce, 5 catches, 30 yards on 7 targets. And Kareem Hunt with 2 grabs for 24 on 3 targets. Harrison Butker, 2 for 2 on field goals. Long was 44, 3 for 3 on extra points. And Matt Araiza, 2 punts averaging 45, long punt of 49 with 1 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for the Chiefs include Drew Tranquill with 7 tackles, Trent McDuffie with 5 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Justin Reed, 5 tackles and 2 passes defensed. Nick Bolton, 4 solo tackles and a forced fumble. Joshua Williams with 5 tackles, a sack, and a pass defensed. Mike Pennell, 4 tackles and a sack. And then you had 3 solo tackles for both Brian Cook and Leo Chanel. And then you had a pass defense each for George Karlaftis and Nazeez Johnson. Over to the Houston Texans. C.J. Stroud, 23 of 39 for 244 yards with 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a QB rating of 73. Plus 2 carries for just 23 yards. Joe Mixon carried the ball 14 times for 57 yards. He added 1 catch for 14 on 2 receptions. Other leading receivers for the Texans include Tank Dell, 6 catches, 98 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets. Unfortunately, according to Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans, Dell tore his ACL and dislocated his knee. So he's going to be out, obviously, for the rest of 2024. And we'll see if he's ready for Week 1 in 2025. So a big blow to this Texans offense. Nico Collins, 7 catches, 60 yards on 10 targets. Dalton Schultz, 5 for 45 and a touchdown on 8 targets. And Robert Woods with 3 catches, 19 yards on 6 targets. Kaimi Fairbairn, 2 for 2 on field goals. Long was 38, 1 for 2 on extra points. Tommy Townsend, the ex-Chief, back in Kansas City since signing with the Texans. 2 punts averaging 52.5, long punt of 57 with 1 touchback in his Arrowhead return. Leading tacklers for the Houston Texans include Eric Murray with 10 tackles. He had 8 solo tackles. Henry Tutu had 10 tackles. Christian Harris, 7 tackles and a sack. Kalen Bullock, 5 tackles. Derek Stingley Jr., 4 tackles and a pass defense. Jeff Okuda had 3 solo tackles. Kamari Lassiter with 4 tackles and 2 passes defense. And Neville Hewitt with 3 tackles for the Texans. Total yards, 375 for the Chiefs and 311 for the Texans. Passing yards favored KC, 251 to 227. Rush yards also favoring the Chiefs, 124 to 84. Kansas City had 25 first downs to Houston's 20. Both teams finished 7 of 13 on third down, and Kansas City was also 1 for 2 on fourth down. 6 penalties, 45 yards for the Texans, 2 sacks taken for 17, no lost fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 2 punts. 2 penalties, 20 yards for the Chiefs, 1 sack taken for 9 yards, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 2 punts as well. Time of possession, 33 minutes, 52 seconds for the Chiefs, 26 minutes, 8 seconds for the Texans. Closing line was Kansas City -3. Over-under was 42.5. Now, I had 2 separate picks for this game, and both involved Patrick Mahomes. If he played, I said the Chiefs would win and cover, and if he didn't play, the Texans would win and cover. So since he did play, I won both picks. I am now 1-1 straight up and 1-1 ATS. The nightcap on Saturday saw the Baltimore Ravens pull even with the Pittsburgh Steelers atop the AFC North with a 34-17 victory over their arch rivals, as both teams are now 10-5 on the season. Pittsburgh still holds the tiebreaker over Baltimore, as they own the head-to-head tie with the Ravens. So they technically are in first place and the Ravens are still second. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Ravens, beginning with Lamar Jackson. 15 of 23, 207 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 115.4 QB rating. And 9 carries for 22 yards. Derrick Henry, have yourself a day, sir. 24 carries, 162 yards. That's 6.8 yards per run. Justice Hill, two rushes for 30 yards. He would leave this game with a concussion and will not play tomorrow against the Houston Texans. We'll see if he's available for Week 18 when they host the Browns. On the receiving side, Zay Flowers, 5 catches, 100 yards on 8 targets. He was also injured. He has a shoulder injury and is listed presently as questionable for tomorrow's game in Houston, and he did not practice on Monday. So we'll see if Zay Flowers is able to go against the Texans tomorrow. Mark Andrews, 4 catches, 37 yards, and a touchdown on 6 targets. Isaiah Likely, 3 catches, 29 yards on 3 targets, and a touchdown. Derrick Henry added 2 catches, 27 yards on 2 targets. And Rashad Bateman, his only catch for 14 yards with a touchdown. He had 3 targets in this game. Justin Tucker, 2 for 2 on field goals. Long attempt 51, 4 for 4 on extra points. And Jordan Stout with 3 punts averaging 35. Long punt of 50 with 2 inside the 20. Leading receivers for the Ravens include Roquan Smith with 10 tackles. Kyle Hamilton, 8 tackles, a forced fumble, and a pass defense. Nande Matabuke, 7 tackles and half a sack. Brandon Stevens, 4 solo tackles. Ardarius Washington, 4 solo tackles and a forced fumble. Kyle Van Noy, 5 tackles and 1.5 sacks. And Marlon Humphrey, he had 3 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception return for a touchdown. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, Russell Wilson was 22 of 33 for 217 yards with 2 touchdowns and 1 interception and a 92.6 QB rating. And 3 carries for 27 yards. Jaylen Warren, 12 carries, 48 yards. Najee Harris, 9 carries, 42 yards. And on the receiving end, Calvin Austin III with 4 catches for 65 yards on 5 targets. Jaylen Warren, 5 catches, 44 yards on 5 targets. Van Jefferson, 2 for 27 on 3 targets. Ben Skowronek, 2 catches, 25 yards on 2 targets. Mike Williams, 3 catches, 24 yards on 3 targets. Pat Freiermuth, 3 catches, 16 yards on 3 targets. Cordell Patterson and Michael Pruitt each had touchdown receptions for Pittsburgh. Chris Boswell, 1 for 1 on field goals. Long attempt 51. 2 for 2 on extra points. Corliss Waitman, 5 tackles, or rather 5 punts, averaging 49.4, long punt of 58, and 3 punts inside the 20. Your leading tacklers for the Steelers include former Raven Patrick Queen, back in Baltimore since signing with the Steelers in the offseason. He had 8 tackles and a pass defensed. DeMonte Kazee has 7 solo tackles. Corey Trice Jr. had 5 tackles. Joey Porter Jr. 3 solo tackles. Cam Hayward 6 tackles. Minka Fitzpatrick 6 tackles, 2 passes defense, and an interception. Isaiah Loudermilk, 5 tackles. Alex Highsmith, 4 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. And James Pierre also had a forced fumble to go along with his 4 tackles. Total yards were 418 for Baltimore and 315 for Pittsburgh. Both teams had 198 passing yards. The Ravens held the edge in rushing, 220 to 117. They also held the edge on first downs. Baltimore had 25, Pittsburgh 19. Both teams were 4 for 10 on third down. The Steelers were also 0 for 1 on fourth down. 5 penalties for 29 yards by the Steelers, 3 sacks taken for 19, 1 lost fumble, 1 interception, and 5 punts. 2 penalties, 10 yards for the Ravens, 1 sack taken for 9, no lost fumbles, 1 interception, and 3 punts. Time of possession, 32 minutes, 25 seconds for the Ravens, 27 minutes, 35 seconds for the Steelers. Closing line was Baltimore -7 and the over-under was 44. I took the Ravens to win and the Steelers to cover. Took the straight-up pick. I'm now 2-1. And lost the ATS, dropping me the 1-2. Alright, on to Sunday, and we'll start with the Carolina Panthers, who got a touchdown from Chuba Hubbard in overtime to outlast the Arizona Cardinals 36-30. Carolina improves to 4-11 on the season, while the Arizona Cardinals, now eliminated from playoff contention, falls to 7-8. We'll start with individual numbers for the Panthers, beginning with Bryce Young. 17 of 26, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 107.5 QB rating. Leading the charge on the ground attack for the Panthers, Chuba Hubbard. 25 carries, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the game winner in OT. Bryce Young also had a rushing touchdown among his 5 carries and 68 yards. Leading receivers for the Panthers include Adam Thielen, 5 catches, 43 yards, and a touchdown on 6 targets. David Moore, 2 catches, 39 yards, and a touchdown on 3 targets. And Tommy Tremble with 3 catches, 32 yards on 3 targets. By the way, Chuba Hubbard added 4 catches for 13 on 5 targets. Eddie Pinheiro, 1 for 1 on field goals. Long was 29, 3 for 4 on extra points. And Johnny Hecker, 5 punts, averaging 44.6. Long punt of 57, 1 touchback, and 1 punt inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for the Panthers include Jacoby Windman, 8 tackles, a sack, and a pass defense. Ashawn Robinson with 7 tackles and a sack. Mike Jackson, 6 tackles and 2 passes defense. Xavier Woods, 6 tackles. Josie Jewell, 6 tackles and a pass defense. Damani Richardson with 6 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Charles Smith Wade, 5 tackles. And DJ Wanham with 5 tackles and a sack. Over to the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray was 20 of 32 for 202 yards with 1 touchdown and an interception, 77.9 QB rating, plus 8 carries, 63 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Good game for James Conner. He led the team in rushing, 15 carries, 117 yards, and a touchdown. And he also led the team in receiving with 4 catches and 49 yards on 4 targets. Michael Wilson with 2 catches, 44 yards on 5 targets. Marvin Harrison Jr., otherwise known as MHJ, 4 catches, 39 yards on 8 targets. Michael Carter, 5 for 30 on 5 targets. And Trey McBride, 3 for 20 on 4 targets. DJ Dallas, he would catch a touchdown pass in this game. Chad Ryland, 3 for 3 on field goals. Long attempt of 58. And 3 of 3 on extra points. And Michael Pallardi with 3 punts averaging 39.3, long punt of 47. Leading tacklers for Arizona include Jalen Thompson with 10 tackles, Kazir White with 8 tackles and a sack, Garrett Williams, 6 tackles, Sean Murphy Bunting, 5 tackles, Buda Baker, 6 tackles, Owen Papo, 5 tackles and a pass defense, Victor Demukele, he had 3 tackles, and Naquan Jones had 3 tackles and a sack. Total yards, close for both teams, 392 for the Panthers, 382 for the Cardinals. Passing yards were 176 to 149 for Arizona. Rush yards, and there were a bunch of them in this game, 243 for Carolina, 206 for the Cardinals. Arizona had 1 more first down, 23, than the Panthers with 22. Arizona 6 of 13 on 3rd down, Carolina 6 of 14. Cardinals finished 1 for 1 on 4th down and 2 for 2 for the Panthers. 11 penalties, 82 yards for the Cardinals. 3 sacks taken for 26, 1 lost fumble, 1 interception, and 3 punts. 9 penalties, 64 yards for the Panthers, 3 sacks taken for 9, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 5 punts. And time of possession nearly split, slight advantage to the Cardinals. 33 minutes, 24 seconds versus 33 minutes, 18 seconds for the Panthers. Closing line was Arizona minus 5.5, over under is 47. I did take the Cardinals to win outright, but I picked the Panthers to cover the spread. So I split this one, taking the ATS pick and losing the straight up pick. I am 2-2 in both areas. Alright, The Battle of Ohio Part 2 goes to the Cincinnati Bengals as they beat up the Cleveland Browns 24-6. The Bengals at 7-8, still mathematically alive in the AFC playoff picture, while the Cleveland Browns fall to 3-12. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Bengals. Joe Burrow, 23 of 30, 252 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, solid QB rating of 134.3, plus 2 carries, 19 yards. Chase Brown shouldered the load for the Cincinnati ground attack with 18 carries, 91 yards. As far as receivers, your leaders are Jamar Chase, 6 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown on 8 targets. T. Higgins, 8 for 58 and a touchdown on 11 targets. Andre Yosivas, 3 for 53 and a touchdown on 3 targets. Chase Brown, 3 for 18 on 3 targets. Mike Gesicki, 2 for 14 on 2 targets. And Drew Sample, 1 catch, 12 yards on his only target. Cade York, once upon a time part of the Browns, 1 of 2 on field goals, long attempt 59, 3 of 3 on extra points. Ryan Reckow, 4 punts, averaging 51.5. Long punt of 62, with 1 inside the 20. Leading tacklers for the Bengals include Jordan Battle, with 7 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Akeem Davis-Gaither, 6 tackles and a pass defense. Mike Hilton with 6 tackles. Jermaine Pratt, 5 solo tackles. Joseph Osai, 5 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. Cam Taylor-Britt with 3 solo tackles. BJ Hill finishes with 5 tackles. And Trey Hendrickson had 3 tackles and a sack. And Chris Jenkins Jr. with 2 solo tackles and 2 sacks. Von Bell had 2 tackles and a forced fumble for the Bengals. For the Cleveland Browns, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, now the starting quarterback in place of Jameis Winston. He went 20 of 34 for 157 in his first start. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a lowly 45.8 QB rating. He also ran the ball 9 times for 49 yards. Jerome Ford led Cleveland's ground game with 11 carries, 92 yards, and a touchdown. Receiving wise, your leaders are David Njoku, 8 for 66 on 10 targets. Jerome Ford, 5 for 39 on 5 targets. Elijah Moore with 2 catches, 21 yards on 5 targets. And Jerry Jeudy, who's kind of gone down a little bit in terms of production, he has 2 catches, 20 yards on 3 targets. Dustin Hopkins, no field goals, 0 for 1 on extra points. Corey Bojorquez, 4 punts, averaging 43.5, long punt of 47. Leading tacklers for the Browns include Jordan Hicks with 9 tackles, Denzel Ward with 5 solo tackles, Mohamed Diabate with 6 tackles, Devin Bush 6 tackles and 2 passes defense. Mike Hall Jr. had 5 tackles and a sack. Juan Thornhill 4 tackles. Martin Emerson Jr. also with 4 tackles. Myles Garrett 3 solo tackles and a sack. And Grant Delpit 5 tackles and a sack for the Browns. Total yards, 326 for the Bengals, 273 for the Browns. Passing yards favored Cincinnati, 210 to 125. Rush yards favored Cleveland, 148 to 116. The Bengals had 21 first downs while the Browns had 18. Cleveland was 3 of 12 on third down and 1 for 3 on fourth down, while Cincinnati finished 4 of 11 on third down. 5 penalties, 41 yards for the Browns, 5 sacks taken for 32, 1 lost fumble, 2 interceptions, and 4 punts. 5 penalties, 35 yards for the Bengals, 4 sacks taken for 42, 1 lost fumble, no interceptions, and 4 punts. Time of possession, 30 minutes, 48 seconds for the Bengals, 29 minutes, 12 seconds for the Browns. Closing line was Cincinnati minus 10, over under 46. I picked the Bengals to win and to cover. And I win both picks, making me 3-2, both straight up and against the spread. Alright. Last time the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears played was on Thanksgiving at Ford Field. The Lions dominated the first half. The Bears would mount a comeback in the second half, only to fall short by terrible clock management and a 23-20 Lions win. On Sunday, the two teams met at Soldier Field in Chicago, and the Lions put it on the Bears by a final of 34-17. The Lions sit at 13-2 after the victory, while the Chicago Bears dropped their 9th in a row to fall to 4-11. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Lions. And by the way, Detroit front runner to claim the number 1 seed in the NFC. More on that later. Individual numbers for the Lions. Jared Goff, 23 of 32, 336 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. QB rating of 137. He's had games like this all season long. Leading rusher was Jahmyr Gibbs, 23 for 109 and a touchdown, making do without David Montgomery, who may return for the playoffs. Receiving wise, you have Jamison Williams, good game for him, 5 catches, 143 and a touchdown on 7 targets. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6 catches, 70 yards and a touchdown on 8 targets. Jahmyr Gibbs, 4 for 45 on 5 targets. Sam Laporta, 4 for 43 and a touchdown on 7 targets. And Sion Vaki, V-A-K-I, Vaki, 2 catches, 20 yards on 2 targets. Jake Bates was 2 for 3 on field goals, long attempt 34, 4 for 4 on extra points. Only 1 punt the entire day for Jack Fox for 47 yards. Leading tacklers for the Lions include Brian Branch with 12 tackles and a pass defense. Amik Robertson, 8 tackles and 2 passes defense. Terry and Arnold, 6 tackles and a pass defense. Jake Campbell with 7 tackles. He also had a pass defense. Afidu Melifonwu, 4 tackles and a sack. Ben Neiman with 4 tackles as well. Al-Quadin Muhammad, 2 tackles, both solo, and a sack. For the Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams, 26 of 40 for 334 with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions and a 107.7 QB rating. Leading rushers include the aforementioned Caleb Williams, 6 carries, 34 yards, and DeAndre Swift, 9 carries for 20 yards. Great game for Keenan Allen as he led the receivers with 9 catches, 141, and a touchdown on 13 targets. Roma Dunze, 4 for 77 on 7 targets for the rookie. DJ Moore had 7 catches, 68 yards on 10 targets. DeAndre Swift, 3 for 33 on 3 targets. And Cole Kmet, 2 catches, 9 yards, and a touchdown on 2 targets. Cairo Santos, 1 for 1 on field goals, long attempt 30, and 2 for 2 on extra points. Torrey Taylor, 3 punts averaging 40.3, long punt of 49, 2 punts inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for the Bears include Jonathan Owens and T.J. Edwards with 8 tackles apiece. Kevin Byard had 7 tackles. Tyreek Stevenson had 6 tackles. DeMarcus Walker with 3 solo tackles. Montez Sweat 4 tackles. And Zach Pickens with 4 tackles and 1 sack. Tremaine Edmonds, meanwhile, had 5 tackles and a pass defense for Chicago. Total yards, Lions 475, Bears 382. Slight advantage in passing yards to the Lions, 329 to 323. Big edge in rushing yards to Detroit, 146 to 59, as well as first downs. The Lions had 27, the Bears had 19. The Lions were 7 of 12 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down. Chicago, a terrible 2 for 10 on third down, but real good on fourth down, going 3 for 4. Sorry about that. 7 penalties, 55 yards for the Lions, 1 sack taken for 7, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 1 punt. 10 penalties, 70 yards for the Bears, 2 sacks taken for 11, 2 lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 3 punts. Time of possession, 31 minutes, 29 seconds for the Lions, 28 minutes, 31 seconds for the Bears. Closing line was Detroit -7, and the over-under was 47.5. I took the Lions both straight up and against the spread. I am now 4-2 both ways. Okay, next we had a pretty boring game as the Los Angeles Rams may have taken one more step towards the NFC West title as they downed the New York Football Jets at MetLife Stadium 19-9. So at 9-6, LA is in the driver's seat for the NFC West Championship, while the lowly New York Jets lose yet again. They fall to 4-11. We'll begin with individual numbers first for the Rams, starting with Matt Stafford. 14 of 19, 110 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 83.2 QB rating. That's like the bare minimum for him. Kyron Williams ran good. 23 carries, 122 yards, and a touchdown. Puka Nacua led the Rams receivers with 8 catches, 56 yards on 9 targets. And Cooper Kupp with 3 catches, 24 yards on 3 targets. Tyler Higbee caught a touchdown in this game for the Rams. Joshua Carty, 2 for 2 on field goals. Long was 45, 1 for 2 on extra points. Ethan Evans with 2 punts averaging 39.5, long punt of 43, and 2 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for Los Angeles includes Jalen McCullough with 9 tackles. Akello Witherspoon, 5 tackles, all solo, and a pass defense. Quentin Lake, 7 tackles. Omar Spates, 5 tackles, and a pass defense. Christian Roseboom, 8 tackles. Jarrett First, 5 tackles. Cameron Kinchins, 4 tackles. And a little bit down the depth chart, you have Cameron Curl with 5 tackles, a sack, a forced fumble, and a pass defense. For the Jets, Aaron Rodgers finished 28 of 42 for 256, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 91 QB rating. So now, Aaron Rodgers is just 1 touchdown pass away from becoming just the 5th quarterback in NFL history with 500. Breece Hall, 14 carries, 52 yards, led the Jets' run attack. Devontae Adams led New York's receivers with 7 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown on 13 targets. Tyler Conklin, 5 catches, 59 yards on 7 targets. Garrett Wilson, 6 catches, 54 yards on 7 targets. Breece Hall, 5 for 38 on 6 targets. Allen Lazard, 2 for 20 on 5 targets. And Jeremy Ruckert, 2 for 12 yards on 2 targets. Anders Carlson, 1 for 2 on field goals, long attempt 21, 0 for 1 on extra points, and there were no punts for the Jets, believe it or not. All right. Jamie Sherwood, 8 tackles, leading the way for the Jets. Chuck Clark with 7 tackles. Isaiah Oliver, 6 tackles. DJ Reed, 4 tackles. Tony Adams, 5 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. And then you had 4 tackles each from Brandon Echols, Quincy Williams, and Ashton Davis. Total yards, 321 for the Jets, 242 for the Rams. Passing yards favored New York, 246 to 110. Rush yards favored LA, 132 to 75. Both teams had 17 first downs. The Rams finished 5 of 10 on third down. Jets were 5 of 13 on third down and 2 for 5 on fourth down. 5 penalties, 45 yards for the Rams. No sacks, no lost fumbles, 1 interception and 2 punts. 8 penalties, 62 yards for the Jets, 1 sack taken for 10, 2 lost fumbles, no interceptions, and no punts. So the Jets had no punts in this game and they still lost. Time of possession favored New York, 32 minutes, 5 seconds, and for the Rams, 27 minutes and 55 seconds. Closing line was LA minus 2.5, over under was 47. I picked the Rams to win and cover. I am now 5-2 in both my straight up and ATS picks. Really, really good. Oh, not what I wanted to do. Alright. As for New York's other team, they got torched by Michael Penix Jr. and the Atlanta Falcons as the home team here wins 34-7. And at 8-7, they draw closer to the NFC South lead. They need a Tampa Bay loss Sunday night to the Cowboys to officially take over the division. The Giants, meanwhile, now the front runners for the number 1 pick in next year's draft, they are 2-13, which is the worst record in football. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Falcons. Michael Penix Jr., 8th player taken overall in the 2024 draft out of Washington, made his NFL debut, going 18 of 27 for 202 yards with no touchdowns and 1 interception and a 73.4 QB rating. On the rushing end, Bijan Robinson led the way with 22 carries, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Tyler Algier had 11 carries for 22. Top receivers for the Falcons include Darnell Mooney, 5 catches, 82 yards on 6 targets. Drake London, 5 for 59 yards on 8 targets. And Ray McLeod, 3 catches, 19 yards on 4 targets. Riley Patterson, 2 for 3 on field goals, long attempt 52. 4 for 4 on extra points. Bradley Pinion, 2 punts averaging 44. Long punt of 46. 1 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for the Falcons include Caden Ellis with 7 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. You had 6 tackles and 2 passes defense from Mike Hughes. Then you've got 5 tackles for Arnold Ibaketi. 5 tackles and a sack for Ibaketi. 4 tackles, 2 passes defense for D. Alford. 4 tackles for J.D. Bertrand. And for the Giants, not much to talk about with this team. Drew Lock, 22 of 39, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and a 58.7 QB rating. Tyrone Tracy, limited to 7 carries, 26 yards. Receiving wise, your leaders are Malik Neighbors, 7 for 68 on 14 targets, Wan'Dale Robinson, 7 for 62 on 12 targets, and Tyrone Tracy Jr., 4 catches, 43 yards, and the team's only touchdown on 4 targets. Graham Gano, no field goals attempted, and 1 for 1 on extra points. Jamie Gillen, 5 punts, averaging 42, long punt 51, 3 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for the Giants include Darius Massol, 11 tackles, Jason Pinnock with 8 tackles, Drew Phillips, 6 tackles, Ty Summers, 7 tackles, Micah McFadden with 5 tackles, Raheem Lane, he had 3 solo tackles. Cordell Flott also had 3 solo tackles plus a pass defense and an interception. Brian Burns, 2 solo tackles. And Dane Belton, 6 tackles and a pass defense. Total yards, 329 for the Falcons, 234 for the Giants. Passing yards were 202 to 189. Rush yards were 127 to 45, both in favor of the Falcons. Atlanta had 22 first downs. New York had 14. The Giants finished 3 of 9 on 3rd down, 0 for 1 on 4th down, while the Falcons were 8 for 14 on 3rd down. 10 penalties, 85 yards for the Giants, 3 sacks taken for 21, 1 lost fumble, 2 interceptions, and 5 punts. 3 penalties, 30 yards for the Falcons, no sacks, no lost fumbles, 1 interception, and 2 punts. Time of possession is 34 minutes, 28 seconds for the Falcons, narrowly putting them in ball hawk territory. And for the Giants, 25 minutes, 32 seconds. Closing line was Atlanta minus 9.5, and the over-under was 42.5. I picked the Giants to cover, but I took the Falcons to win. So now I'm 6-2 straight up and 5-3 in my spread picks. If you're joining in late, you're watching the week that was. As we're taking a look at the team and player individual numbers, or team and player statistical numbers rather, for every game across week 16 in the NFL. We have 8 games left to look at, and coming up after these 8 games, I'll have my Week 17 power rankings, the updated NFL playoff picture, and clinching and elimination scenarios from across the league. So do stay tuned. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and get notified every time I go live. And now let's continue the recap with the Washington Commanders, who were down by double digits on 3 separate occasions on Sunday, scored 22 fourth quarter points en route to a stunning 36-33 upset of the Philadelphia Eagles. Washington moves to 10-5 on the season, and they have locked up a playoff spot in the process, so congrats to them. And in the process, they did eliminate Dallas, New Orleans, and San Francisco from contention. Philadelphia, with the loss, ended their franchise record 10-game win streak as they fall to 12-3. We'll begin with individual numbers first for the Commanders. Good game for Jaden Daniels. 24-39, 258 yards, 5 touchdowns, plus 2 interceptions, and a 99.1 QB rating. He also led the team in rushing with 9 carries, 81 yards. Brian Robinson, just 10 carries for 24. On the receiving side, Eliminate Zacchaeus, the next Eagle, had 5 catches, 70 yards on 5 targets, 5 receptions, there we go, for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns on 8 targets. Scary Terry McLaurin, 5 catches, 60 yards and a touchdown on 6 targets. De'Ami Brown, 4 catches, 56 yards on 5 targets. Brian Robinson, 2 for 17 on 3 targets. Jamison Crowder, 2 for 15 and 2 touchdowns on 4 targets. And Jeremy McNichols, 4 for 15 on 4 targets. Zane Gonzalez, no field goals, 4 for 4 on extra points. Tress Way, 2 punts averaging 46, long punt of 49. Leading tacklers for Washington include Bobby Wagner with 9 tackles and a pass defense. Jerzon Newton with 6 tackles and a sack. Mike Sanderstil, 7 tackles. Frankie Louvu, 7 tackles plus a pass defense and an interception. Jeremy Chin, 6 tackles. Marshawn Lattimore, 4 tackles and 3 passes defense. I think he got hurt in this game. And then you had 3 tackles and a pass defense for Sheldon Day. Cleveland Farrell with 3 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. Jalen Holmes and Dexter Fowler also added a sack each for the Commanders. For the Philadelphia Eagles, who loses for the first time since Week 4, the game started with Jalen Hurts, who went 1 for 4 for 11 yards with no touchdowns or interceptions and a 39.6 passer rating. Left this game midway in the first quarter with a concussion and did not return. And according to Philly coach Nick Sirianni, Hurts is currently in concussion protocol. So we shall see if Jalen Hurts is able to go Sunday against the Cowboys. Kenny Pickett took over the rest of the way and went 14-24 for 143 yards with a touchdown and an interception and a 72.1 QB rating. Plus 3 carries, 13 yards. Jalen Hurts, before getting injured, had 3 carries for 41. But we all know, and then there's Kenneth Gainwell, 4 carries, 7 yards. But we all know the heart and soul of this Eagles offense is Saquon Barkley. 29 carries, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Could have done more, honestly. But that is still a pretty good stat line. Only 2 receivers to talk about for the Eagles. And that's their top 2. A.J. Brown, 8 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown on 15 targets. And Devontae Smith, 6 for 51 on 8 targets. Jake Elliott, 4 for 5 on field goals. Long was 50. He had missed every 50-yard attempt this year. I think he missed like 7 or 8 of them. And he went 3 for 3 on extra points. Braden Mann, 4 punts, averaging 40, long punt 43, 2 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for the Eagles include Nakobe Dean with 12 tackles, Zach Bond with 11 tackles and a forced fumble. Darius Big Play Slay, 7 tackles and 3 passes defense. Reed Blankenship, 5 solo tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Nolan Smith, 3 solo tackles and a sack, and Jalen Carter, 3 tackles and a forced fumble. Cooper DeJean, 4 tackles and a forced fumble as well for Philly. Total yards, Commanders 368, Eagles 338. Passing yards favored Washington 255 to 127, so that's pretty much 2-1 in that area. Rush yards favored Philadelphia 211 to 113. The Commanders had 23 first downs, the Eagles had 20. Philly was 3 of 16 on third downs, which is not good, and 3 for 3 on fourth down. Washington 7 of 13 on third down and 2 of 3 on fourth down. 10 penalties, 91 yards for the Eagles, 4 sacks taken for 27, 1 lost fumble, 1 interception, 4 punts. 6 penalties, 93 yards for the Commanders, 1 sack taken for 3, 3 lost fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 2 punts. Time of possession, 36 minutes, 18 seconds for the Eagles. That puts them in ball hawk territory. And 23 minutes, 42 seconds for the Commanders. Closing line was Philadelphia -4, and the over-under was 47. I obviously took the Eagles to win and cover. But since their defense does not know how to close out games, at least on this day, I took DL in both picks. 6-3 straight up, 5-4 ATS. And I just want to say something. We had 5 turnovers in that game, 3 fumbles and 2 interceptions. We had a double-digit lead on 3 separate occasions, and somehow we lost that game. I don't want to hear about Jalen Hurts being concussed or anything, because that's not an excuse. How we finished that game was pitiful, pathetic. How do you expect to win a championship if you're blowing games in this fashion? You just can't do it. Okay, rant over. Let's continue the review. The last of the early games on Sunday sees the Indianapolis Colts beat the Tennessee Titans in a barn burner at Lucas Oil Stadium, 38-30. Indy keeps their playoff hopes alive as they move to 7-8. While the lowly Tennessee Titans fall to 3-12. We'll begin with individual numbers first for the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson did very little in this game. 7 of 11 for 131 yards with 1 touchdown pass and an interception and a 97.2 QB rating. And 9 carries, 70 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Again, he did very little in this game. Jonathan Taylor had more total yards than Anthony Richardson. 29 carries, 218 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And he is my offensive player of the week. Josh Downs had 3 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown on 4 targets. Adonai Mitchell, 1 catch, 36 yards on his only target. And Michael Pittman was held to 2 catches, 19 yards on 3 targets. Matt Gay, 1 for 2 on field goals, long attempt 31, 5 for 5 on extra points. Rigoberto Sanchez, 4 punts, averaging 47.3, long punt of 57, 1 punt inside the 20-yard line. Jalen Carles led the Indianapolis defense with 10 tackles. Jalen Jones, 4 tackles. Zaire Franklin, 7 tackles. DeForest Buckner, 5 tackles and a pass defense. Sam Womack III had 3 solo tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. And Kwity Paye had 2 catches, or rather 4 target. I can't talk tonight. Sorry about that, guys. He had 4 tackles and a sack. There we go. And Kenny Moore, I think I can give him the defensive player of the week. 3 tackles, 2 passes defensed, and 2 interceptions. For the Tennessee Titans, Mason Rudolph, now the everyday starter for the Titans in place of Will Levis. He went 23 of 34 for 252 yards, 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and a 72.2 QB rating. Tony Pollard, just 8 carries, 35 yards. Tajay Spears, 10 carries, 27 yards, but he did score 2 touchdowns on the ground. Chig Okonkwo led the Titans receivers with 9 catches, 81 yards on 11 targets. Calvin Ridley, 3 for 78 and a touchdown on 5 targets. Tajay Spears added 3 for 39 on 4 targets. Tyler Boyd, 2 for 20 on 3 targets. And Nick Westbrook-Akine, 2 catches, 17 yards, and a touchdown on 4 targets. Braden Narvison, 0 for 1 on field goals, 2 for 2 on extra points. Ryan Stonehouse, 4 punts, averaging 55.3, long punt of 61, 1 touchback, and 1 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for Tennessee include Cedric Gray with 15 tackles. That's 9 solo and 6 assisted tackles. Harold Landry, 8 tackles. James Williams, 6 tackles. Amani Hooker, 5 tackles and an interception. Jeffrey Simmons, 8 tackles and a sack. Jarvis Brownlee Jr., 6 tackles. Sebastian Joseph Day, 5 tackles. And Daryl Worley also with 5 tackles. Total yards, 458 for the Colts, 307 for the Titans. Passing yards favored Tennessee, 242 to 123. And look at these rushing numbers. 335 to 65 for Indianapolis. Yes, I said 335. That's how many rush yards the Colts had in this game. Indy had 19 first downs, Tennessee had 18. The Titans were 5 of 11 on 3rd down. Colts were 8 for 15 on 3rd down and 1 for 1 on 4th down. 4 penalties, 35 yards for the Titans. 1 sack taken for 10. No lost fumbles, 3 interceptions, and 4 punts. 7 penalties, 62 yards for the Colts. 1 sack taken for 8. No lost fumbles, 1 interception, and 4 punts as well. Time of possession was 33 minutes, 1 second for the Colts, and 26 minutes, 59 seconds for the Titans. Closing line was Indianapolis -4, over under 42.5. I picked Indianapolis to win, Tennessee to cover. I am now 7-3 straight up and 5-5 ATS. Alright, now to the 4 late games from Sunday. Starting off with the Minnesota Vikings edging out the Seattle Seahawks 27-24 as they stay in the running for not only the NFC North but also the number 1 seed in the conference as they move to 13-2, which is their best 15-game start since 1998. The Seahawks are 8-6, or rather 8-7 after the loss. So, coupled their loss with LA's win, the Rams are 1 game ahead of the Hawks in the NFC West and could very well put the division away this week. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Vikings. And how about Sam Darnold? He's had a very good year. 22 of 35, 246 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 112.3 QB rating plus 5 carries, 11 yards. Aaron Jones, 18 carries for 67 yards, led the ground attack for the Vikings. Leading receivers include Justin Jefferson, 10 catches, 144, 2 touchdowns on 13 targets. Jordan Addison, 5 for 35 and a touchdown on 8 targets. TJ Hawkinson, 2 for 27 on 5 targets. And Aaron Jones, 3 for 26, also on 5 targets. Will Reichard, 2 for 2 on field goals, long 52, 3 of 3 on extra points. Ryan Wright, 6 punts, averaging an even 50 yards, long punt of 63, and 4 of those punts inside the 20-yard line. Good job for him. Leading tacklers for the Vikings include Blake Cashman, 12 tackles and a pass defense. Byron Murphy, 10 tackles and a pass defense. Josh Metellus, 7 tackles. Cam Bynum, 6 tackles and a pass defense. Andrew Van Ginkel, 5 tackles, 2 sacks. Bobby McCain with 4 tackles. And Theo Johnson, 4 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. And Dallas Turner, mid-first round draft pick by the Vikings out of Alabama, had 3 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Meanwhile, Stephon Gilmore added 2 tackles and 2 passes defense. For the Seahawks, Geno Smith, 31 of 43 for 314 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, and a QB rating of 96.5. Run game, again non-existent for the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker, 31 yards on 8 carries. Kenny McIntosh, 3 carries, 14 yards. Leading receivers for the Hawks include Jackson Smith and Jigba, 8 for 95 and a touchdown on 12 targets. DK Metcalf, 3 for 57 and a touchdown on 7 targets. Noah Fant, 3 for 50 on 6 targets. Kenneth Walker, 8 for 28 on 8 targets. Tyler Lockett, 2 for 19 on 2 targets. And A.J. Barner had a touchdown catch in this game for the Seahawks. Jason Myers, 1 for 2 on field goals, long was 43, 3 for 3 on extra points. Michael Dixon, 5 punts, averaging 52.4, long punt of 59, 1 touchback, and 2 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for Seattle include Josh Jobe with 7 solo tackles and a pass defense. Devin Witherspoon, 6 tackles and a pass defense. Tyrese Knight, 7 tackles. Big Leonard Williams, 5 tackles. Jaron Reed, 4 tackles, a sack, a forced fumble, and a pass defense. Kobe Bryant, 3 solo tackles, 4 total. Ernest Jones, 5 tackles. And Julian Love, 2 tackles and a pass defense. Reek Woolen added 2 tackles, and 3 passes defense for Seattle. Total yards, Seahawks 361, Vikings 298. Passing yards favored Seattle 302 to 217. Rush yards favored Minnesota 81 to 59. The Seahawks had 23 first downs while the Vikings had 19. And both were terrible on third down. 3 of 12 for the Vikings, 2 of 10 for the Seahawks. Both teams 1 for 1 on fourth down. 7 penalties, 70 yards for the Vikings, 3 sacks taken for 29, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 6 punts. 11 penalties, 77 yards for the Seahawks, 2 sacks taken for 12, no lost fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 5 punts. Time of possession, 30 minutes, 41 seconds for Minnesota, 29 minutes, 19 seconds for Seattle. Closing line, Minnesota -2, over under 43. I picked the Vikings to win and to cover, and they hit the spread dead on the money at -3. So I am now 8-3 straight up, 6-5 in my spread picks. Alright. This week's Toilet Bowl sees the Las Vegas Raiders end a 10-game losing streak as they edge out the Jacksonville Jaguars in Sin City 19-14. As Vegas improves to 3-12, Jacksonville joins them at 3-12. We'll begin with individual numbers first for the Raiders. Aiden O'Connell, 24-38, 257 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and an 82.9 QB rating. Rushing wise, Amir Abdullah had 7 carries, 38 yards, and a touchdown. And Alexander Madison, 12 for 27 yards, and a touchdown as well. Leading receivers for Vegas include Brock Bowers, the rookie Georgia tight end. 11 catches, 99 yards on 13 targets. Amir Abdullah, 5 catches, 47 yards on 6 targets. Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker each had 2 catches for 41 yards. Myers had 5 targets while Tucker had 4. And Alexander Madison had 4 catches, 29 yards on 7 targets. Daniel Carlson, 2 for 3 on field goals, long attempt 49, 1 for 1 on extra points. AJ Cole, 6 punts averaging 47.5, long punt of 60, with 3 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for the Raiders include Isaiah Palomau, 11 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. Robert Spillane, 8 tackles. Trevon Morig, 6 tackles and a pass defense. Darnay Holmes with 5 tackles. Jack Jones, 5 tackles and a sack, or rather 5 tackles and a pass defense. Sorry about that. Divine Diablo with 4 tackles and a pass defense. And 4 tackles from Thomas Harper. Clavon Chayasin added a sack and a pass defense. And Charles Snowden added another pass defense for the Raiders. Over on the Jags side of the coin, Matt Jones, 25 of 39 for 247 with 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a 90.4 QB rating. Tank Bixby, 12 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown. Travis Etienne, 9 for 22. Leading receivers for Jacksonville include Byron Thomas, 9 catches, 132 yards, and a touchdown on 13 targets. Parker Washington, 6 for 54 on 6 targets. And Brenton Strange, 2 catches, 22 yards on 4 targets. Cam Little, no field goals, 2 for 2 on extra points. Logan Cook, 7 punts, averaging 39.3, long punt of 55. No touchbacks and 2 inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers for Vegas include Foye Oluokun, 8 tackles and a pass defense. Devin Lloyd, 7 tackles. Tyson Campbell, 5 tackles and a pass defense. Jerrion Jones, no relation to Jack Jones, 4 solo tackles. Devon Hamilton, 5 tackles. Trayvon Walker with 4 tackles. Mason Smith, 3 tackles, a sack and a pass defense. And Eric Armstead, 3 tackles and a sack. Total yards, Raiders 314, Jaguars 308. Passing yards favored Vegas 245 to 236. Rush yards favored Jacksonville 72-69. Vegas had 21 first downs to 15 for Jacksonville. The Jaguars were 6 of 15 on 3rd down, 1 for 2 on 4th down. Vegas 4 for 14 on 3rd down. 8 penalties, 60 yards for the Jaguars, 1 sack taken for 11, 2 lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 7 punts. 7 penalties, 62 yards for the Raiders, 2 sacks taken for 12, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 6 punts. Time of possession, 34 minutes, 18 seconds for the Raiders, close to ball hawk territory. Jaguars, 25 minutes, 42 seconds. Closing line, Vegas minus 2.5, over under 41.5. I picked the Raiders straight up and against the spread. Won both picks. I am now 9-3 straight up, 7-5 ATS. Alright, Buffalo Bills played it real close, but beat the New England Patriots 24-21. However, their NFL record-tying streak of 8 consecutive 30-point games does come to an end with this one. Buffalo remains in the race for the number 1 seed in the AFC, chasing the Chiefs as they are now 12-3. Jacksonville, or rather New England, drops to 3-12. We'll start with individual numbers for the Bills, beginning with Josh Allen, who did not have his best game. Just 60-29 for 154 yards, with 1 touchdown and an interception and a 67.3 QB rating, plus 6 carries, 30 yards. James Cook, 11 carries, 100 yards on the button, and a touchdown. And he also led the team in receiving, for what it's worth. 3 catches, 26 yards, and a touchdown on 3 targets. Matt Collins, 2 for 25 on 3 targets. Dawson Knox and Khalil Shakir, 2 catches, 22 yards each. 2 targets for Knox, 6 for Shakir. Dalton Kincaid, 4 for 15 on 7 targets. Tyler Bass, 1 for 1 on field goals, long attempt 50, and 3 for 3 on extra points. Sam Martin, 4 punts, averaging 42.8, long punt of 56, 1 touchback, and 2 inside the 20. Leading tacklers for the Bills include Terrell Bernard, 12 tackles. Cole Bishop, 8 tackles. Dorian Williams, also with 8 tackles. Cam Lewis, 4 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Kyer Elam, 6 tackles, and Greg Russo, 4 tackles and a forced fumble. And Dwayne Smoot, 2 solo tackles and a forced fumble. Over on the Patriots side, it was not a bad game, all things considered, for Drake May. 22 of 36, 261 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 90.2 passer rating, plus 6 carries, 30 yards, same rushing numbers as Josh Allen. Ramondre Stevenson, 12 carries, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Antonio Gibson, 10 for 28. Keyshawn Boutte led the Patriots receivers with 5 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets. Austin Hooper, 4 for 55 on 5 targets. Hunter Henry, 4 for 39 and a touchdown on 9 targets. And Demario Douglas, 4 catches, 33 yards on 5 targets. Kendrick Bourne, 2 catches, 18 yards on 2 targets. Joey Slye, no field goals and 3 for 3 on extra points. Bryce Behringer, 3 punts, averaging 44.3, long punt of 46, 1 punt inside the 20. Leading tacklers for the Patriots include Kyle Duggar with 8 tackles, Christian Ellis, 7 tackles and a pass defense, Marte Mapu, 7 tackles, a forced fumble, 2 passes defense, and an interception. Jelani Tavai, 6 tackles. Jeremiah Farms Jr., 4 tackles and a sack. Jonathan Jones, 4 tackles, a forced fumble, and a pass defense. Devon Gottschall, 4 tackles. And Alex Austin, 2 solo tackles and a pass defense. Total yards were 379 for the Patriots and 324 for the Bears. Passing yards favored the New England Patriots, 253 to 152. Rush yards favored the Buffalo Bills, 172 to 126. The Patriots had 28 first downs. That's right, 28 first downs. The Bills had 19. New England, real good on late downs. 7 of 12 on third down, 2 for 2 on fourth down. So that is 9 of 14. 4 of 11 on third downs for the Bills and 1 for 1 on fourth down. 5 penalties, 34 yards for the Patriots, 2 sacks taken for 8, 2 lost fumbles, 1 interception, and 3 punts. 13 penalties, 78 yards for the Bills, 1 sack taken for 2, no lost fumbles, 1 interception, 4 punts. Time of possession, 30 minutes, 57 seconds for the Patriots, 29 minutes, 3 seconds for the Bills. Closing line was Buffalo minus 14, over-under was 48, and this was probably my best pick of the week because I took the Bills to win outright and the Patriots to cover, and I hit both those picks. 10-3 straight up and 8-5 in my spread picks. Up next, you have the San Francisco 49ers, who fell in Miami to the Dolphins 29-17, and at 6-9, they are officially eliminated from the playoffs. Meanwhile, there is a heartbeat on South Beach as the Dolphins are still alive in the AFC race at 7-8. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Dolphins, beginning with Tua Tagovailoa, 22 of 34, 215 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a 92.2 QB rating. Devin Achane, 17 carries, 120, and a touchdown, including the game winner from 50 late in this one. And Raheem Mostert, 8 for 31. Receiving wise, Achane led the Dolphins with 6 catches, 70 yards on 7 targets. Jonnu Smith, 6 for 62 on 6 targets. Tyreek Hill, 3 for 29 and a touchdown on 7 targets. Malik Washington, 3 for 28 on 4 targets. And Raheem Mostert, 2 for 15 on 2 targets. Jason Sanders, 5 for 5 on field goals, long attempt 54, 2 for 2 on extra points. And Jake Bailey, 2 punts averaging 49, long punt of 58, 1 punt inside the 20. Leading tacklers for the Dolphins include Jordan Brooks with 7 tackles and a sack. Jordan Poyer with 7 tackles as well. Anthony Walker Jr. with 6 tackles. Kendall Fuller, 4 solo tackles and a pass defense. Zach Sealer, 4 tackles and a sack. Javon Holland, 4 tackles and a pass defense. Meanwhile, Emmanuel Ogbah and Jalen Ramsey each had 5 tackles. For the 49ers, whose 2024 season has been nothing short of a nightmare, Brock Purdy was 26 of 40 for 313 yards with 2 touchdowns and 1 interception and a 95.1 QB rating. He also led the team in rushing with 4 carries, 26 yards. Deebo Samuel, 5 for 25. And Patrick Taylor Jr. with 8 for 24. Sorry about that. Leading receivers for San Fran include George Kittle, 8 catches, 106 on 9 targets. Deebo Samuel, 7 for 96 and a touchdown on 9 targets. Jawan Jennings, 4 for 51 on 6 targets. And Ricky Pearsall, 4 for 37 on 4 targets. Eric Saubert did have a touchdown catch in this game for San Francisco. Jake Moody, 1 for 2 on field goals, long 21, 2 for 2 on extra points. Pat O'Donnell, 4 punts, averaging 45, long of 51, and 1 inside the 20. Leading tacklers for the Niners include Fred Warner with 11 tackles, Renardo Green, 10 tackles and a pass defense. D. Winters, 8 tackles in a pass defense. Malik Mustafa, 5 tackles. Talanoa Hufanga, 6 tackles. Diamador Lenore, 4 tackles and a pass defense. Nick Bosa, 4 tackles. And and Demetrius Flanagan Fowles with 3 tackles and a pass defense. Total yards, Miami 381, San Francisco 374. Passing yards favored San Francisco 293 to 215. Rush yards though favored Miami 166 to 81. 21 first downs for the Dolphins and 20 by the 49ers. San Francisco was 5 of 13 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down. Miami was 4 of 12 on third down. 11 penalties, 90 yards for the 49ers, part of the reason why they lost. 3 sacks taken for 20, no lost fumbles, 1 interception, and 4 punts. 6 penalties, 45 yards for the Dolphins, no sacks taken, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 2 punts. Time of possession, 33 minutes, 6 seconds for the Dolphins, 26 minutes, 54 seconds for the 49ers. Closing line, San Francisco -2, over-under was 44, and they just went over this total. I took the Niners to win and the cover, and I lost both, going 10-4 straight up, and 8-6 ATS going into Sunday Night Football, as the Dallas Cowboys defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 26-24, and much like San Francisco, Dallas is also eliminated from the playoffs thanks to Washington's upset win against Philly earlier in the day. The Cowboys are now 7-8. The Buccaneers dropped to 8-7, and that's bad news for them because the Falcons won earlier in the day, and Atlanta has now seized control in the NFC South. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Cowboys, starting with Cooper Rush, who had a very good game. 26 of 35 for 292, with a touchdown and no interceptions and a 108.3 QB rating. And nothing much to say about this ground attack. Rico Dowdle, only 13 carries, 23 yards. That's 1.8 per rush if you're doing the math. Kavontae Turpin, 3 for 11. Ezekiel Elliott did find the end zone in this game. On the receiving side, CeeDee Lamb, 7 catches, 105 yards on 8 targets. Brandon Cooks, 3 for 48 on 3 targets. Ryan Flournoy, 3 catches, 41 yards on 3 targets. Jake Ferguson, 6 for 40 on 9 targets. Rico Dowdle, 3 for 28 on 3 targets. Jalen Tolbert, 2 catches, 20 yards, and a touchdown on 3 targets. Brandon Aubrey, 4 for 4 on field goals. His long was 58, in which he had 2 of those, and 2 for 2 on extra points. Brian Anger, 5 punts, averaging 49.2, long punt of 57, 2 punts inside the 20. Leading Cowboy tacklers include Deron Bland with 8 tackles, a forced fumble, and a pass defense. Nick Vigil, who led the team with 10 tackles. Micah Parsons, who was questionable coming into this game with an illness. He finished with 5 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble, so no ill effects from him. Chauncey Goldston, 6 tackles, a sack, and a pass defense. Jordan Lewis, had 6 tackles, 2 passes defense, and an interception. Amani Oruwariye, I'm going to practice that name. He had 6 tackles. Donovan Wilson had 5 tackles, a sack, and a pass defense. Meanwhile, Maris Lialfo had 7 tackles, a forced fumble, and a pass defense. For the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield was 31 of 43 for 303 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 97.3 QB rating. And 3 rushes, 42 yards. Bucky Irving had 16 carries, 68 yards, and a rushing touchdown. And 3 catches, 24 yards on 3 targets. Perfect segue into the receivers. Led by Mike Evans. 5 catches, 69 yards on 8 targets. Jalen McMillan, 5 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets. Rashad White, 7 for 50 on 8 targets. Trey Palmer, 2 for 31 on 4 targets. Payne Durham, 5 catches, 29 yards on 7 targets. And I mentioned Bucky Irving. Ryan Miller also had a touchdown catch in this game for Tampa. Chase McLaughlin, 1 for 1 on field goals, long attempt 45, 3 for 3 on extra points. And Jack Browning, 4 punts, averaging 44.8, long punt of 54 with 1 touchback. Leading tacklers for the Buccaneers include Christian Eisen. That's how he pronounces his last name. It's Eisen, not Eisen. He had 13 tackles. Levante David, 8 tackles. Yaya Diaby, 5 tackles and half a sack. J.J. Russell, 4 tackles and a pass defense. Total yards, Tampa Bay 410, Dallas 317. Passing yards, 276 to 276. That favored the Cowboys. Rush yards favored the Bucks, 134 to 31. Tampa Bay had 25 first downs, Dallas 15. Buccaneers 6 of 12 on 3rd down, 0 for 1 on 4th down. And the Cowboys 5 for 15 on 3rd down. 6 penalties, 47 yards for the Bucks. 4 sacks taken for 27, 1 lost fumble, 1 interception, and 4 punts. 5 penalties, 30 yards for the Cowboys, 1 sack taken for 6, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 5 punts. Time of possession, 32 minutes, 48 seconds for the Buccaneers, 27 minutes, 12 seconds for the Cowboys. Closing line was Tampa Bay minus 4.5, over under is 47. I picked Tampa to win and cover, and I lost both those picks. So now I'm 10-5 straight up and 8-7 against the spread. Final game we'll be looking at is Monday Night Football, and it was one-sided to say the least, as the Green Bay Packers throws the first shutout in the NFL in 2024, and it only took 240 games of the schedule to do it, as they blinked the New Orleans Saints 34-0. Green Bay is headed to the playoffs now. They're 11-4, while the Saints dropped to 5-10. We'll begin with individual numbers, starting off with the Packers. Alright, Jordan Love, 16 of 28 for 182 yards with 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and an 88.7 QB rating. Malik Willis came in briefly, went 1 for 2 for 34 yards with no touchdowns or interceptions, and a 95.8 QB rating. Josh Jacobs ran the ball effectively, 13 for 69 and a touchdown, averaging 5.3. Emmanuel Wilson, 11 carries, 52 yards, and a rush touchdown. He averaged 4.7 a pop. And Chris Brooks had 6 carries, 23 yards, and a touchdown at 3.8 per pop. On the receiving side, Jaden Reed, I should say, 3 catches, 76 yards on 4 targets. Tucker Kraft, 3 for 63 on 4 targets. Josh Jacobs added 4 catches, 38 yards on 4 targets. Romeo Dobbs, 2 for 20 on 3 targets. And Dontavian Wicks, 3 for 13 and a touchdown on 7 targets. Brandon McManus, 2 for 2 on field goals. Long attempt 55, 4 for 4 on extra points. Daniel Whelan, 2 punts averaging 46.5. Long punt of 60 with 1 touchback. Leading tacklers for Green Bay includes Edgerrin Cooper, who had 10 tackles rather. Eric Wilson with 9 tackles. Eric Stokes with 4 tackles. Devontae Wyatt with 4 tackles and a sack. Carrington Valentine, 3 solo tackles and a forced fumble. Keyshawn Nixon, 3 solo tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. Zane Anderson have 3 tackles, 2 passes defense, and an interception. Brenton Cox Jr., 2 solo tackles and a sack. And Xavier McKinney with 2 sacks or 2 tackles and a pass defense. As for the New Orleans Saints, the numbers were not pretty for them. Spencer Rattler was 15 of 30 for 153 yards, with no touchdowns and an interception, and a 51.1 QB rating. He did lead the team with 5 carries, 28 yards. Jordan Mills had 4 carries, 16 yards, and Kendry Miller had 8 carries for 15 yards. Okay. Foster Moreau had 2 catches, 33 yards on 3 targets. Dante Pettis, 2 catches, 31 yards on 7 targets. Jawan Johnson, 2 for 27 on 2 targets. Jordan Mills, 5 for 16 on 8 targets. And Kendry Miller, 2 catches, 16 yards on 2 targets. No field goals or extra points, obviously, for the Saints, so there are no kicking stats there. Michael Hayball had 4 punts, averaging 39.8, long punt of 48, with 3 inside the 20. Leading Saints tacklers, and we won't waste a lot of time here. We have Demario Davis with 10 tackles, Will Harris with 8 tackles, Tyrann Mathieu with 5 solo tackles, Cam Jordan 5 tackles, Ugo Amadi with 5 tackles as well, and Pete Werner with 9 tackles. Meanwhile, you had a pass defense for Alontae Taylor plus 6 tackles, and 2 passes defense for Kalen Saunders plus 4 tackles. Total yards, Green Bay 404, New Orleans 196. Passing yards favored the Packers 216 to 129. Rush yards also favored the Packers 188 to 67. The Cheeseheads had 24 first downs while the Saints had 14. New Orleans 4 of 11 on 3rd down, 0 for 2 on 4th down. Green Bay 6 of 13 on 3rd down, 3 for 3 on 4th down. 7 penalties, 40 yards for the Saints, 3 sacks taken for 24, 1 lost fumble, 1 interception, and 4 punts. 6 penalties, 60 yards for the Packers. No sacks, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 2 punts. Time of possession puts the Packers in ball hog territory at 37 minutes, 13 seconds, while the Saints are at 22 minutes and 47 seconds. Closing line was Green Bay minus 14, over under 43.5. I picked the Packers to win and to cover. And I finished the week with a record of 11-5 straight up. and 9-7 in my spread picks. And for the season, I am 163-77 straight up. That's close to a 68% win percentage. I'm at 679 once again. And I even my spread record at 119-119-2. Alright, so that's the recap. Now we're going to move on to my power rankings, and we'll go rapid fire here, as we're still under 2 hours since I've started recording. So here we go. My Week 17 power rankings. Number 32 are the New York Giants at 2-13. They host the Indianapolis Colts. 31 are the New Orleans Saints at 5-10. They host the Raiders. Number 30 are the Tennessee Titans at 3-12. They play the Jaguars in Jacksonville. Number 29 are the Cleveland Browns at 3-12. They host the Dolphins. Number 28, the New England Patriots at 3-12. They play the Chargers at home on Saturday. 27 is the Las Vegas Raiders at 3-12. They are in New Orleans. 26, the Tennessee Titans at 3-12. They host the Titans. 25 is the New York Jets at 4-11. They're at Buffalo against the Bills. Number 24 is the Chicago Bears at 4-11. They'll host the Seahawks on Thursday night. Number 23 is the Carolina Panthers at 4-11. They're at Tampa Bay. Down to 22 are the San Francisco 49ers at 6-9. They play Detroit in the Monday Night Football finale, at least for this season. Number 21 are the Indianapolis Colts at 7-8. They play the Giants at MetLife. Down to number 20 are the Arizona Cardinals at 7-8. They play the Rams in LA on Saturday night. Number 19 are the Dallas Cowboys at 7-8. They play the Eagles in Philly. Number 18, you've got the Miami Dolphins at 7-8. They're in Cleveland. Number 17, you've got the Seattle Seahawks at 8-7. They play the Bears at Soldier Field on Thursday night. Number 16 are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 8-7. They host the Carolina Panthers. Number 15, the Atlanta Falcons at 8-7. They're in DC against the Commanders on Sunday night. Number 14, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals at 7-8. Hosting the Denver Broncos in a big game on Saturday afternoon. Number 13 are the Los Angeles Chargers at 9-6. They play the Patriots in Foxborough on Saturday afternoon. Well, it will still be Saturday morning for me here in Phoenix since the game starts at 11. Down to number 12, you have the Houston Texans at 9-6. They host the Baltimore Ravens on Christmas. That's going to be the late game tomorrow. Number 11, the Los Angeles Rams at 9-6. They host the Arizona Cardinals on Saturday night. Number 10 is the Pittsburgh Steelers at 10-5. They host the Kansas City Chiefs in the first game on Christmas. Number 9, the Washington Commanders at 10-5 host the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football. Number 8 are the Denver Broncos at 9-6. They're in Cincinnati on Saturday. If they win, they're going to the playoffs. Number 7, the Baltimore Ravens at 10-5. They're in Houston on Christmas. Number 6, you got the Green Bay Packers, now the playoff-bound Green Bay Packers, at 11-4. They host the Minnesota Vikings, who sit number 5 in my power rankings at 13-2. So they will meet in Minneapolis this week. Last week's number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles, fell to number 4. They're 12-3 and host the Dallas Cowboys. Number 3 are the Buffalo Bills at 12-3, hosting the New York Jets. Number 2, you've got the Detroit Lions at 13-2, playing the San Francisco 49ers on Monday night. And regaining the top spot, you have the Kansas City Chiefs in a familiar spot at 14-1. They play the Pittsburgh Steelers at Acrisure Stadium on Christmas. So those are my Week 17 power rankings. Now we're going to take a look at the latest playoff race in the National Football League entering week number 17. Give me a second while I refresh this, and we can run through everything. Okay, here it comes now. Here we go. Okay, well, starting the AFC as always, you've got the Kansas City Chiefs, who have locked up the AFC West. The Buffalo Bills, champions of the AFC East. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who have clinched a playoff spot at least. And they lead the NFC North despite being tied with the Ravens. And the Houston Texans, champions of the AFC South. Those are your top 4 seeds. Kansas City is 14-1, 5-0 versus the West, 9-1 in the AFC. 467 strength of schedule, 443 strength of victory. The Buffalo Bills sit at number 2, 12-3 overall. 4-0 versus the East, 8-2 in the AFC. 489 strength of schedule, 456 strength of victory. Remember, Buffalo holds the head-to-head tiebreaker over Kansas City, so they're still alive for the top seed. The playoff-bound Pittsburgh Steelers sit in the number 3 seed at 10-5. 3-2 versus the North, 7-3 in the AFC. 462 strength of schedule, 433 strength of victory. Pittsburgh wins the tiebreaker over Baltimore based on best win percentage in conference games. And then the Houston Texans, the AFC South champs for a second straight year, remains in the number 4 spot at 9-6. 4-1 versus the South, 7-3 in the AFC, 493 strength of schedule, 393 strength of victory. The Baltimore Ravens, Los Angeles Chargers, and Denver Broncos all have the 3 wild card spots. Baltimore at 10-5 locked up at least a wild card spot, and they're still alive for the AFC North. They are 3-2 in the North and 6-4 in the AFC. 547 strength of schedule, 540 strength of victory. Next at number 6, the Los Angeles Chargers at 9-6. 3-2 versus the West, 6-4 in the AFC. 507 strength of schedule, 378 strength of victory. And the Broncos sit in the 7th spot, also 9-6. 2-3 versus the West, 5-5 in the AFC. 467 strength of schedule, 333 strength of victory. LA wins the tiebreaker over Denver based on head-to-head win percentage. As Thursday night, they completed the season sweep of the Broncos. Alright, only 3 teams in the AFC are still alive for at least that number 7 spot. And those teams are the Colts, Dolphins, and Bengals. Indianapolis is 7-8, 2-3 versus the South, 6-5 in the AFC, 502 strength of schedule, 324 strength of victory. The Dolphins also sit at 7-8. They're 3-2 versus the East and 5-5 in the AFC. 444 strength of schedule, 295 strength of victory. And the Cincinnati Bengals are at number 10. 7-8 record, 2-3 versus the North, 4-6 in the AFC. 458 strength of schedule, 238 strength of victory. Indianapolis wins the tiebreaker over both Cincinnati and Miami based on best win percentage in conference games. Plus, Indy has the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Miami Dolphins, who wins the tiebreaker over Cincinnati based on best win percentage in conference games. So again, the Colts are number 8, Dolphins 9, and the Bengals 10. The remaining 6 teams are all out of playoff contention, starting off with the New York Jets in the number 11 spot at 4-11. 1-3 versus the East, 4-6 in the AFC, 484 strength of schedule, 300 strength of victory. And then there's a 5-way tie for the worst record in the conference with the Browns, Jaguars, Titans, Raiders, and Patriots. All 5 teams have matching 3-12 records. Cleveland is 2-3 versus the North and 3-7 in the AFC. 524 strength of schedule, 511 strength of victory. Cleveland wins the tiebreaker over Jacksonville based on head-to-head win percentage. They also win the tiebreaker over both Las Vegas and New England based on best win percentage in conference games. Division tiebreak was initially used to eliminate Tennessee. Jacksonville wins the tiebreaker over Tennessee based on head-to-head win percentage, and they played this week, ironically enough. Jacksonville is 2-2 versus the South, 3-7 in the AFC, 502 strength of schedule, 289 strength of victory. Jacksonville wins the tiebreaker over both Las Vegas and New England based on best win percentage in conference games. Division tiebreak was initially used to eliminate Tennessee. Jacksonville wins the tiebreaker over Tennessee based on head-to-head win percentage. The Titans are 1-2 in the South and 3-7 in the AFC. 529 strength of schedule, 422 strength of victory. Tennessee wins the tiebreaker over Las Vegas and New England based on best win percentage in conference games. Then you have the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 0-5 in the West, 3-8 in the AFC. 551 strength of schedule, 356 strength of victory. Vegas wins the tiebreaker over New England based on best win percentage in conference games. And then you have the New England Patriots, who are 1-4 versus the East and 2-8 in the AFC. 431 strength of schedule, 333 strength of victory. So based on all those tiebreakers, Cleveland is number 12 in the conference. Jacksonville is 13, Tennessee 14, Vegas 15, and New England 16. On the NFC side, your 4 division leaders are the Detroit Lions in the NFC North and the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC East, both locking up playoff spots. You've got the Los Angeles Rams in the NFC West and the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC South. We'll start with the Lions, who are at 13-2. 5-0 versus the North, 9-1 in the AFC. 516 strength of schedule, 492 strength of victory. Detroit wins the tiebreaker over Minnesota based on head-to-head win percentage. More on the Vikings shortly. The Philadelphia Eagles may be entrenched in that number 2 spot at 12-3. 3-1 versus the East, 7-3 in the AFC. 476 strength of schedule, 450 strength of victory. They are the 2 seed. The Los Angeles Rams are the 3 seed at 9-6. 3-1 versus the West, 5-5 in the NFC. 507 strength of victory, 444 strength of 507 strength of schedule, and 444 strength of victory. Sorry about that. And the Atlanta Falcons take over the number 4 spot at 8-7. 4-1 versus the South, 7-3 in the NFC. 520 strength of schedule, 408 strength of victory. Atlanta wins the tiebreaker over Tampa Bay based on head-to-head win percentage. They swept the Buccaneers in their 2 meetings this season, so that's why they're in the 4 spot. The Vikings, Packers, and Commanders hold the 3 wild card spots, and 2 of those spots have already been locked up. The Minnesota Vikings sit at the number 5 seed with a record of 13-2, but they're still in the running for both the NFC North and the conference's top seed. Minnesota is 3-1 in the North, 8-2 in the NFC. 436 strength of schedule, 390 strength of victory. The Green Bay Packers, by virtue of Monday night's win over the Saints, they're going to the playoffs. They're currently the 6th seed with a record of 11-4. 1-3 versus the North, 6-4 in the NFC. 529 strength of schedule, 412 strength of victory. The Washington Commanders hanging on to that number 7 spot. They are 10-5. 3-2 versus the East, 7-3 in the NFC. 427 strength of schedule, 327 strength of victory. On the outside of the playoffs looking in, you only have 2 teams still in the hunt, and those are the Buccaneers and Seahawks. We'll start with Tampa Bay. 8-7 overall, 2-2 in the South, 6-4 in the NFC. 533 strength of schedule, 483 strength of victory. And then the Seahawks, also at 8-7, is 3-2 versus the West and 4-6 in the NFC. 520 strength of 520 strength of schedule, and 425 strength of victory. Tampa Bay wins the tiebreaker over Seattle based on best win percentage in conference games. That's 6-4 versus 4-6. The remaining 7 teams all out of the running. You have a tie with the Cowboys and Cardinals. Dallas is 7-8, 3-1 in the East, 5-5 in the NFC. 484 strength of schedule, 371 strength of victory. And Arizona also 7-8, 2-2 versus the West, 3-7 in the NFC. 538 strength of schedule, 400 strength of victory. Dallas wins the tiebreaker over Arizona based on best win percentage in conference games. That puts the Cowboys 10th and the Cardinals 11th. The San Francisco 49ers fell to 12th in the conference at 6-9. 1-4 versus the West, 4-6 in the NFC. 551 strength of schedule, 378 strength of victory. At number 13, you have the New Orleans Saints at 5-10. 2-3 versus the South, 4-7 in the NFC. 524 strength of schedule, 320 strength of victory. The Bears and Panthers are next. They're in a tie. Chicago is 4-11, 0-5 versus the North, 2-8 in the NFC. 551 strength of schedule, 317 strength of victory. And Carolina, also 4-11, is 1-3 versus the South and 3-7 in the NFC. 489 strength of schedule, 283 strength of victory. Chicago wins the tiebreaker over Carolina based on head-to-head win percentage. And at the bottom of the NFC, you have the New York Giants at 2-13. 0-5 versus the East in a real bad 1-10 in the NFC. 542 strength of schedule, 367 strength of victory. So that is a look at the current playoff picture in the NFL going into Week 17. I don't know why this is not showing me Week 17, Athena. Well, since they're only showing me the clinching scenarios for Week 16, I think I'm going to end it here. Alright, so this was the Week 16 edition of the week that was, as we looked at all the player and team statistical numbers from every game in the NFL this past week. We also revealed my Week 17 power rankings and the latest playoff picture across the league entering Week 17. I'll make all of my picks tomorrow morning. I usually do this on Thursday, but since we have games tomorrow, we'll get that out in the morning. So make sure you join me for that. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the pigskin. And Merry Christmas to all. And to all, a good night. Peace out.